In lesson 4.8, we are going to work on placing zeros in the product. Our essential question is, how do you know that you have the correct number of decimal places in your product? So we're going to start with the real world, unlock the problem. It says connect. When decimals are multiplied, the product may not have enough of digits to place the decimal point. In these cases, you may need to write additional zeros. So boys and girls, what it says is we're going to start solving our problem. It's a little cut off at the bottom of the page, but I'm pretty sure you'll all be able to read and follow along with me. Students are racing typical garden snails and measuring the distance the snails travel in 1 minute. Chris's snail travels the distance of 2/10 of a foot. Jamie's snail travels 4/10 times as far as Chris's snail. How far does Jamie's snail travel? Boys and girls, I'm going to right off the back circle Chris's snail's amount, and then I'm also going to look and see that it says Jamie's snail travels 4/10 times as far. When I hear 4/10 times as far, as a math detective, I know I'm going to have to multiply. So I'm just going to decode that on the side so I can be ready to solve this problem. Boys and girls, on the left-hand side, right-hand side of the page, it says, using the information, describe what you're being asked to find. So what I'm going to need to find is, I need to find 4/10 of 2/10 foot to determine the distance Jamie's snail travels. Now, boys and girls, keep in mind, as a math detective, the word of needs to prompt you to think about multiplication. So I want you to add that in there because I want you to add the word of into your math vocabulary and understanding how to translate that. So boys and girls, we're going to go through our steps and our procedures on our first strategy. So it says we're going to multiply 4/10 times 2/10. Step 1, multiply as though it is whole numbers. So boys and girls, we're just going to multiply 2 times 4 is 8. Step 2, determine the position of the decimal point in the product. Since tenths are being multiplied by tenth, boys and girls, the product will show, well, let's count the decimal places. 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places. Yesterday, boys and girls, we talked about adding up the decimal places in both factors. To know that in the product, we need to move 2 decimal places. We know, boys and girls, that any product that has 2 decimal places will show hundredths. So let's fill that in. Step 3, place the decimal point. Are there enough digits in the product to place the decimal point? Right now, boys and girls, we see that there's 1 digit. We know that we need 2 decimals. So we know that there is not enough. So boys and girls, it says write zeros as needed to the left of the whole number in the product to place the decimal point. So boys and girls, we're going to start at the 8 and we're going to move the 2 decimal places. 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places. So, Jamie's snail travels a distance of 8/100ths of a foot. So, boys and girls, keep in mind, if you use the strategy that we talked about yesterday, counting the decimal places in the first factor, adding it to the decimal places in the second factor, you can figure out where to place the decimal points in the product. Boys and girls, we're going to do one more example where it says multiply money. So it says multiply 2/10 times 30 cents. So step 1, it says multiply as with whole numbers. Think the factors 30/100ths and 2/10. So on the side, boys and girls, we can simply multiply this out as whole numbers. 30 times 2. Well, we know 3 times 2 is 6, so 30 times 2 must be 60. So, boys and girls, it says, what are the whole numbers that we multiply? We know our factors was 30 times 2. Step 2, determine the position of the decimal point in the product. Since hundreds are being multiplied by tens, the product will show less than that, which would be thousands. Step 3, boys and girls, says place the decimal point. Write the zeros to the left of the whole number in the product as needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the decimal places, and in parentheses, I hope you all have been practicing writing the amount of decimal places in each factor, adding them up, and then determining where to place the decimal point in the product, boys and girls. 2 decimal places, 1 decimal place. 2 decimal places plus 1 decimal places is 3 decimal places. Boys and girls, we know that any decimal that has 3 decimal places, name must be in the thousands, which connects to what we just solved. So it says we are going to take the number 60 and we are going to move 3 decimal places. So, boys and girls, let us start. 1, 2, 3. Now we see that our one little swoop needs a number. A 0 is what we need to add there. So boys and girls, we know that our answer is 6 cents. So it says, since the problem solves dollars and cents, what place value should you use to show cents? And we know that's hundreds, and we also know that hundreds translates to pennies, boys and girls. So lastly, boys and girls, it says find the product. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the first strategy that we did today, which is we're going to treat this like these are whole numbers. So right off the back, we're going to treat this as though it's 2 times 5. We know 2 times 5, boys and girls, is normally 10. However, we know that our problem is not actually 2 times 5, so we have to multiply it out as we know it to be. So boys and girls, we see that there are 2 decimal places in the first factor, 1 decimal place in the second factor. If we add that up, we know that we need to move 3 decimal places. So what I'm going to write down is my 10 that I have for my product, and I'm going to move my 3 decimal places, boys and girls, from the back of my number to the front. 1, 2, and 3. Boys and girls, we need to add our 0 because we had 3 decimal places. Now, boys and girls, when we look at this, we could say our answer is either 10 thousandths, or we can say our answer is 100th. So boys and girls, on the side it says, what steps did you take to find the product? So what we're going to do is we're going to write out step by step what we did. So boys and girls, I'm going to read through our explanation, and feel free to pause it if you need to. It says, first I counted the decimal places in each factor and added them to determine the decimal places that would be in the product. So I counted 2 plus 2, 2 plus 1 is 3. Then I multiplied like they were whole numbers, 2 times 5. Last, I counted and determined the decimal places and placed the decimal point in the product. 1, 2, 3. And then finally, boys and girls, I added a 0 where it was needed. So this is our lesson for placing additional zeros in the product.